Welcome to another episode of All Around. I'm your host, Carter Dudley Jr., and tonight we're going to recap the A10 Men Basketball Championship semifinal round. First up, top seed VCU took on fourth seed Loyola Chicago, and VCU held on late to beat Loyola Chicago 62-55. Oh man, Max Sugar bounced back from a rough shooting night in quarters, posted 14 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. Philip Russell added 10 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and Zeb Jackson, as a reserve, added 8 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. Loyola Chicago was led by Miles Rubin, who posted, excuse me, 12 points, 8 rebounds. Sheldon Evans Jr. added 12 points, 4 rebounds, and Dez Watson, who had a monster game in the quarters. Obviously, not so much tonight. Uh, Thanks to VCU's vaunted defense, top 10 national defense, who I will touch on in a few. Finished with 9 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. VCU, their defense, it was rather suffocating as you would expect in the first half. They held the Ramblers to 31% from the field, 28% from deep. Um, Meanwhile, they had an efficient offense going, scoring 50%. Shooting 50% from the field, shooting 38% from deep, and to take a 36-27 first half lead. Philip Russell, he looked better. He was a little bit rusty in the first game back, but tonight, this afternoon, he looked more like himself, scoring 10 first half points. Again, Max Sugar, strong first half. Like I said, he had a rough shooting night in the quarters, bounced back in the first half alone. This afternoon against the Ramblers, posting 7 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. Meanwhile, Dez Watson in the first half, he didn't shoot the ball well, but he managed to get to the line. He had a couple shots, 7 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds in the first half. But like I said, even though he was struggling shooting the ball, he found other ways to impact the game. And that was a big reason why, with his struggles, that was a big reason why VCU were able to have a 9 point lead at the half. With Watson coming off the game he had, where he had, I believe, I forgot the exact amount, but it was in the 20s for sure. Scorching the earth, efficient numbers, shooting the ball. VCU, you could tell, keyed in on him. And look, VCU, their top 10 defense, their pressure, their ball pressure, they can switch. They got a variety of defenders, and they come in waves. They have depth. It's not like you're dealing with a couple of defenders, in the lineup and the starter, and then you might get a break with other guys that's starting or guys coming off the bench. No, if you are, you got to deal with everybody. Everybody on that team can defend. And for the Ramblers at times it was hard for them to get open and get clean shots, man. So it was they played right in some VCU hands. And then it didn't help that the Ramblers also turned the ball over 7 times, and VCU scored 10 points off of those turnovers. Yes, VCU, when they turn you over, it's similar to the '90s Bulls with Pippen and Jordan. Those guys, when they turn you over, you pretty much put it in that it's a bucket. They thrive off that. So you have to really take care of the ball to beat them. And in the first half, the Ramblers didn't do a good enough job in that area whatsoever, man. So VCU had the 36-27 halftime lead. Now, the second half, things changed. The Ramblers started off the second half on a 7-3 run, got back in the game. As you would expect, they fought. They fought tremendously, especially Miles Rubin. He woke up with 10 points and 5 rebounds in the second half alone. He was a big spark for them. Sheldon Evans Jr. didn't shoot the ball well, but he got to the line and hit a three. So they had 6 points in the half. So, look, they made it again late. in the second half. Well, midway through the second half, it was a game. But at the end of the game, you saw the difference, and the difference in the game at the end in the clutch was the guard play at BCU. Um, they consistently got paint touches, and when they got paint touches, uh, they was just they was throwing it down, they was dumping it off to Furman inside, and he was scoring at will. So whenever the Ramblers would get close, that's usually what will happen. One of the guards would break the defense down, VCU, get in the paint, the Ramblers will collapse on them, and then they drop it off or leave it for Furman inside. And Furman, he got it done. He kept scoring, especially he was 4 points, 2 or 2, but those points were huge, were huge points. And when I mean huge points, those were like the last couple minutes type huge points. You understand what I'm saying? So Christian Furman, let me be clear. So there'll be no mix up. And then when he wasn't scoring, they were scoring by themselves. They were scoring runners, layups, or whatnot, tough jumpers. And even though the Ramblers outscored them 28-26 in the second half, BC was able to hold them off because of the guard play, running down the clock, understand time of possession. And when they had to make a play, they made it, whether it was a success or whether they scored on themselves, man. So, um, VCU handled business for the most part, as they expected. One seed in the conference, and they move on to the championship. Their defense in the last 5 minutes of the game, 5 minutes and 10 seconds, they held the Ramblers without a field goal. Ramblers only scored on free throws. They held them without a field goal, and the Ramblers shot 1 of 13. They shot 1 of 13 in that span. That again, the Rams defense it's a nasty, ferocious, flying around, efficient though defense. And yeah, not many teams are flying around like that to disrupt you. And when it mattered most, it disrupted the Ramblers, and that's why VCU was able to pull out the win, man. But it was very close, very close. Like the Ramblers, one thing they did do, they dominated the boards 48-38. They had 22 offensive rebounds, 22. And that led to 17 second chance points, which offset, their bad 3-point shooting, 5 for 25, 20%. And their bad shooting overall from front of field, 20 of 68, 29%. With the way all the offensive rebounds that they were able to convert, it could have been a different ball game. But with that being said, VCU had the edge in bench points. So, they outscored the Ramblers 17-10. A lot of that has to do with the production of Zeb Jackson and like I said, Furman. Especially late with key baskets down the stretch, man. So the VCU defense won them this game, as well as the guard play, the IQ of those guys. Sugar. They didn't even mention Bamasil, who's fairly quiet tonight. Jennings, who had a great night last night, he was held to over. But Zeb Jackson, Philip Russell, and obviously Max Sugar, A10 Player of the Year. They showed up. They showed up and got it done, man. So, with that being said, VCU moves on. Now, moving on to the second game. George Mason defeats St. Joe's 74-64. They would take on VCU in the championship. George Mason, Jalen Haynes finished with 22 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. Darius Maddox added 19 points. KD Johnson posted 12 points and 3 assists. St. Joseph was led by Xavier Brown, who posted a game high 26 points, 6 rebounds. Adam Finkley added 14 points and 3 rebounds, and Rasheed Fleming posted 9 points and 12 rebounds. Well, this game was a little bit different than what we saw in the VCU Loyola game. This game was more of a, it appeared at the beginning to be a blowout. just being frank with it. George Mason, literally, they came out as hot as can be. They jumped out to a 14-0 lead, 14-0 lead to start the game. And they were led by Darius Maddox, 5 points and 1 assist. They didn't miss. They hit everything they put up, man. And in that span, St. Joe's was the complete opposite. They were ice cold. They started the game down 0-8. Now I know people will say, look, they played last night and they went into overtime in a hard-fought game against Dayton. I understand that, but the game is the game. You know what I mean? Like you gotta find a way. At this stage of the game, at this stage in the season, every team is tired, beat up. It's just par for the course. But I understand realistically that may have played a role, but bottom line is the opposing team don't care. You gotta get it done. And just last year saw a team over on the ACC tournament side. NC State went 5 games in 5 days. I think they was tired. So at some points in basketball, it becomes about will. And to start this game, the Patriots were imposing their will on St. Joe's without a doubt. But midway through the first half, uh, George Mason started turning the ball over, 3 straight turnovers, sparked the Hawks offense, and that led to Xavier Brown getting some easy baskets. And with him, if he sees the ball go on the hoop a couple of times, it don't take much for him to heat up. And he definitely heated up. Back-to-back threes from him sparked the 13-5 run. Sparked the 13-5 run, which got them back in the game. And they cut the lead that had also they cut the lead to 10, 35-25 with 2:55 left in the first half. And at that point, Xavier Brown had 13 points. Look, Maddox had it going, man. Whenever St. Joe's in the first half would make a run, he would hit a big shot. In the first half alone, he had 15 points on 6 or 7 shooting, 3 or 4 from deep, along with 2 assists. Like I said, Xavier Brown pretty much kept them in it for the most part because no one else can really sum it up even any offense outside of Haskins. But it was still this year Haskins who had 7 points, but it was still not enough, man. As George Mason, they took a 37-28 lead in the first half. They held St. Joe's overall to 32% shooting from the field, 26% shooting from deep. And meanwhile, St. Joe's shot 57% from the line. When you're struggling from the field, you can't miss. Well, you can't miss free throws at any point, but you really can't miss when you can't hit. Field goals. That just makes your job harder and a lot harder to try to come back. And then at the end of the half, GW finished. Uh, they got hot to kind of get that lead back up to close to 10, making 5 of their last 7 shots. Now in the second half, it was a complete opposite of what how the game started. In the second half, St. Joe started the second half on a big run, 7-0 run, which cut George Mason's lead to 2, 37-35, 17-19 at the 17-19 mark. But and this is where Anthony Finkley, he woke up. Eric Reynolds joined the party, who was 0 for the first night. He joined the party. Rashard Fleming woke up, and then it was a ball game. Now they only down 2, but then the Patriots defense responded. Also in the first half, Jared Billis got in foul trouble fairly quickly, and he had to sit out the majority of the first half. He is so key for the Patriots. Not just defensively, even offensively, with the way he runs the offense, how active he is, especially, getting to the paint, setting screens, moving the ball, crashing offensive board. He just impacts winning in so many ways. So having him with him not being on the floor, it definitely hurt Mason, but they managed to still get a, lead at halftime. But I digress. Back to the second half. The defense responded, as you would expect. VCU and George Mason were pretty much you know, even each other out with their potency defensively. Both had both have top 10 defenses nationally as a team. So they have stretches where they can just come completely just suffocate you and shut you down and make it hard on you, and that's what you saw in the second half. Once St. Joe's cut the net two, cut the George Mason lead to two. They held the Hawks to 1 of 8 over the next 3 minutes and 11 seconds in the game. That's just big time defense, man. And meanwhile, uh, George Mason they went on the 12-2 run during that 3-11 span. Um, and a lot of that had to do with the impact of, again, Darius Maddox, who had 12 points in the second half, and Jalen Haynes, who had 10 points on 4 of 8 shooting with 5 assists. Um, Another huge contribution, KD Johnson. He can be erratic at sometimes. He can be very erratic, man. I know Tony St. George Mason's head coach said it, after their quarterfinal win over George Washington. He said, KD Johnson coaching him, he knows he's going to get into heaven, you know, uh, because of that, that's his calling card to get into heaven. Because as much as you may want to just, obviously I'm joking, like strangle him with some of the mistakes he make. The kid's so talented that he just balances it out with some great plays at times, man. Great, like big time shot making. Like he might get a key steal, key assist, and then it just evens out over time. So he's one of those players where he gonna have head scratching mistakes, but he's gonna have plays that help you win the game where you just be like, all right, you gotta kind of let him figure things out and let him be him. Because if you try to like suffocate him, he's not gonna be the same player. You could just see that, man. That's what I think Tony Skin was talking about. Um, Look, and as the second half went on, St. Joe's, they tried to fight, behind Xavier Brown again. Scoring 13 points in the second half on 4-10. Along grabbing along with 4 rebounds, but you could tell the overtime game had drained St. Joe's because they started to fade, especially as George Mason just continued to elevate the intensity of the defense. The Hawks started to fade and they never could bounce back, man. And George Mason was able to pull away, with some timely steals, and there's a memorable one where Jared Billups stole the ball from Xavier Brown, passed it ahead to KD Johnson, who instinctively in stride through the lob to Jalen Haynes, who pretty much put the exclamation point on this game with the two-hand dunk that just made George Mason faithful just go off in the arena. And, with excitement, jumping up and down. It got loud in there, man. So it was a hell of a play. Look, George Mason won both halves. They outscored St. Joe's, and they managed to pull out a 74-64 win. And they move on. It's only right. Top 2 teams in the A10 all year. They battle it out in the championship to see who will eventually get to punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament on that front. I feel like the A10 honestly deserves to. I feel like both of these teams deserve to make it. I'm praying that the selection committee don't make a political call, get somebody in there that's less deserving, like say a team that struggled all year, like say a North Carolina who this year, no disrespect, don't deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. I don't, storylines and fan bases and prestige and stuff, none of that should matter. None of that should matter. You're either good enough to get there, you're not. And some of these high major teams that may get denied, if they struggle, they shouldn't be there. But these two definitely deserve to be there. Now, looking at things, George Mason, 3-point shooting, they shot 53%. St. Joe shot 22% from deep. Free throws were pretty much even. George Mason had a couple more turnovers. KD Johnson But that's par for the course. But he made some winning plays as well. Made more than enough winning plays as well. So it was all forgiven. Of George Mason's 16 turnovers, St. Joe scored 19 points off those turnovers. They got to take better care of the ball if they're going to beat VCU. That's without a doubt. You can't have 16 turnovers against VCU. You're pretty much guaranteeing the L. St. Joe's, they out rebounded George Mason 39-32. Had 20 offensive rebounds. They had more offensive rebounds than they had defensive rebounds. George Mason have to clean that up as well. That should never be the case with them. With the bigs they have, Jalen Hayes and Gio Hermandrew. It just shouldn't happen. Second chance points. Obviously, with the offensive rebounds, St. Joe's 13 second chance points. George Mason only had 5 bench points. Again, George Mason 17-9. And most of that came from KD Johnson, who scored 12 of the bench of 17 points. And assists, ball movement, execution. George Mason, 20 assists on 26 field goals. Defense should bring the ball. It's hard to guard at St. Joe's. 8 assists on 22 made field goals. They just won't cut it, especially against a good defensive team. It's just you're gonna have to move the ball to get them moving around and get them trying to keep up with you, so you can take advantage at some point, man. But St. Joe's, they didn't do enough of that, man. A lot of one-on-one type stuff, man. They play right into George Mason's hands, man. So congrats to George Mason. Big 1-2 matchup for the A10 crown on Sunday. VCU, top seed VCU versus second seed George Mason. We're going to see how it all works out. I'll be back with another edition of All Around, recapping the championship game. Talk to you guys later.